Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a very quick video review of the Samsung Galaxy S9. This is just shy of 3 years after its original release date, so basically this video is to go over the specs and see if this phone is still worth buying in 2020 or 2021, and just how it stacks up against the current competition, and really just to see if it's still a competitive device on the market. Now, before we get started, as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, check them out in the comment box below. Check out the channel. I try to update new content pretty regularly. Now, jumping in the description, I'm going to list a couple of links both to where I'm getting all of the specs for this device, but also links to a few other videos. The first of which is going to be a comparison video of the S9 and the S20, which I'll be doing and actually just holding the phones side by side, letting you know my thoughts after having used both phones. But in that video, as promised, I also stated that I would record this video using the S20. So this video is going to be recorded entirely on the S20 using the AKG headphones that are included in the box. Now, jumping straight in. So the S9, according to phonearena.com, was released in March 16th of 2018. So this device has a 5.8-inch screen, which is going to be 2960 by 1440 as far as the pixel resolution. And we are looking at a 12 megapixel single camera on the back, as well as an 8 megapixel front-facing camera or selfie camera. Now, as far as case and screen protector, I do have a pretty standard Spigen case on this phone, just a $15, $20 case from Amazon, and the just like a standard tempered glass screen protector as well. So if it looks a little different, I just don't have the device as it is right out of the box. Now, jumping into hardware, this device does come with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 and 4 gigs of RAM. Onboard storage, we're looking at the standard model with 64 gig memory, but there is a micro SD card slot as well that supports up to 400 gig micro SD card. This does have a 3000 milliamp hour battery, and it supports currently up to Android 10.0 with Samsung One UI. So this device overall, I've been using it for a couple of years now, pretty much honestly hit the battery pretty hard with using a Mophie battery case and just having to charge it pretty regularly, both for recording for videos, using it for work, things of that nature. So 2 years later, it was definitely time for an upgrade, but it's still honestly a pretty solid device overall. Now, I do want to compare this to the S9 Plus because they are not the same devices. So the S9 is a 5.8-inch display, while the S9 Plus is a 6.2-inch. That's measured diagonally. The S9 Plus has a 3500 milliamp hour battery, while the S9 has a 3000 milliamp hour battery. Now, big difference is the S9 has 4 gigs of RAM, whereas the S9 Plus has 6 gigs. So that is going to be one of the biggest differentiators between them. But then the S9 Plus has a different camera as well. So the S9 features a single lens camera, but the S9 Plus has a dual lens camera. So the special camera for the S9 Plus has optical image stabilization and 2x zoom. Both have super slow-mo, and you can slow down the action in videos, giving it a different look. Now, I will tell you, as far as camera quality and display, this device is still incredible. I've actually given it to a couple individuals, having them take pictures and kind of compare it to their own phones, and they have said that the camera quality on this is incredible. And again, this is just shy of 3 years later. So overall, camera quality is incredible. I can tell you that as far as the general price tag, you are looking on Amazon as far as the date of publishing this video. I found a couple, a renewed or refurbished model for $262 and some change. And then it does look like there's a fully unlocked renewed model for about 300 and some change on the actual Samsung website. Interestingly enough, if you were to get the S9 as of the date of posting this video, unlocked with the standard 64 gig model, it would be about $499.99. So honestly, for that price tag overall, I just couldn't justify purchasing this over the S20, which would be anywhere from $499 to $599, depending on if you're getting any kind of special sales, although that does retail at $999.99. So as far as overall build quality, if you can get this one for a couple $100s off, off, maybe in the $300 price range, I would highly recommend it. But overall, as far as how it compares against the competition now, with 4 gigs of RAM and the processor being a little bit further behind compared to like the S20, for example, this you will notice this is a little bit slower. So the S20 has 3 times more RAM. If you get the Ultra, it actually has 4 times more, coming in between 12 and 16 gigs. Processor speed as well being factored in. There is a noticeable difference in the overall quality. Now, build quality is really solid on this. In the S20 video, I compared it to almost like a brick. It's a dense phone, but it has a very, very solid build quality overall. Now, again, comparing the two, one thing that I did in the video with the S20, I did open up Call of Duty Mobile just to compare the two. So I'll open it up here as well and just try to give you like a general idea as to what the gameplay looks like on the device itself. Now, general load times on this were a little bit longer, and you will notice sometimes the graphics do skip a little bit. As you can tell, they're actually doing right now. When I opened it on the S20, even though it was running in the background for both devices, it was much, much smoother opening it there. Now, trying to get this where it'll be in frame. So just jumping into a game just so you can see what the overall gameplay looks like. It still does not really hiccup, to be honest. The videos in the background, they do tend to slow down a little bit. It does lag here and there. It does seem like the processor does in some ways struggle to keep up. But overall, it's still a pretty solid device. I mean, considering this is 3 years old, how it compares to some of the other devices like the S20, the overall quality is still pretty solid, especially when you consider this is supposedly a multiplayer match. You can tell that this, like, there's minimal lag. I'll just kind of ignore these people. But you can tell minimal lag with the device. Processor seems to be able to keep up overall. The phone just doesn't look like it's struggling very much. So I will give them credit for that. And the overall screen quality is still very, very solid. I mean, the pixel density is not too far off from the S20, all things factored in. The battery is substantially smaller. The cameras are definitely downgraded, especially when you factor in the S20 has 3 cameras from the wide angle down to the just standard camera. Now, the front-facing camera is the only thing where there's really a little bit of competition. So this device has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera as opposed to the S20, which has a 10 megapixel camera. The S20 having a larger screen and a couple other things factored in would need a larger battery. But overall, when you look at the specs for this phone, for example, pulling up the device manager, you'll see that we have a battery life estimated of 1 day, 19 hours. That is highly, highly inaccurate. But you have performance modes you can choose from, your storage, your memory, which you can clean. And there's an optimization, which will close basically all of your background apps and will also allow you to put apps to sleep, clear out any unnecessary or unused memory, things of that nature. Device settings looks pretty standard compared to the S20, although I will say searching for specific features is a little bit more difficult using this model. And then as far as just additional specs, we'll go over anything that kind of remains. So looking to additional features for the S9, you do have that Super AMOLED display, which is still pretty competitive in the market, although it doesn't have the quality overall of the S20, which is to be expected. You do still have an octa-core processor built into this. It's that Qualcomm Snapdragon 845. You have 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gig onboard memory, although I believe there are models that you can expand on that if you were to purchase them from Samsung's website. And this does support Android 10, although some individuals are stating that this came stock with Android 8.0 Oreo. And then again, that 3000 milliamp hour battery, 12 megapixel rear facing camera that does support 4K UHD recording of 60 frames per second. You do have your 1920 by 1080 full HD and at 240 frames per second, and your 1280 by 720 HD at 960 frames per second. It does support the slow motion and super slow motion as well. Although I have noticed with the slow motion and super slow motion video recording, It does tend to be incredibly dark, and the quality is just drastically reduced compared to standard video, which is to be expected. But when you compare it to some of the newer devices of today, I think that really shows where this device stands apart. I think that overall the display quality processor is very, very solid, and really what allows this device to hold its ground compared to newer devices today and devices that are continuing to be released. However, a couple of areas where it does fall short, the onboard RAM sitting at just 4 gigs is not really enough to allow your device to run everything it needs to, and you will see it hiccup occasionally when switching between applications, closing down apps, starting up new apps, things of that nature. Even after a device or factory reset, when comparing it side by side with the S20, because the S20 has the 120 hertz refresh rate, you just can tell a difference. You can change some display settings, increasing screen resolution, and but basically to allow this to even compete with the S20 as far as just using it for your actual day-to-day gaming, you would need to run this thing with all settings on max speed to even try to compete, and even then it would still fall short overall. I will say that the camera is still pretty solid compared to a lot of phones today, but it just doesn't have all of the features and the total quality. So, for example, you're going to get 4K video recording out of this as opposed to 8K video recording out of the S20, which also has 3 lenses, allowing you to have that 30x space zoom and the telephoto lens, and really just allowing that phone to have such a wide range of zoom angles. So, overall, my opinion would be if you were to get this phone as a budget phone, honestly, in 2020, 2021, it's still a solid phone and a solid buy overall. But when compared to the S20, just to be honest, the S20 pretty much dwarfs it in every single way. It has a larger battery, more RAM, faster processor, more efficient processor. The screen size is larger, but not too large. And the S20 actually has 4 different models as well. So you can really choose and kind of have that catered to whether you want a better camera, better battery, bigger screen, as opposed to the S9, which is really just the S9 and the S9 Plus with some minor alterations on a couple of those handsets. Now, this is an S9 built for AT&T, so I would say make sure before you purchase a phone that you check that there are no hardware variations between manufacturers and that SIM cards will fit and everything else. But to answer the question on whether or not this is a good buy, if you're looking for a solid phone that has a solid build quality and will definitely last, I would highly recommend it. However, if you have the extra money to spend, I do think that, again, the S20 would be the way to go. There are rumors that Samsung may be discontinuing the Note series, and the S20 just, again, has so many different features that this phone does not, both with the new UI, but also with potential upgrades to for example, the new Android 11 and the increased cameras. Again, the 3 cameras, as previously mentioned, all the hardware on the S20 is essentially an upgrade. So, comparing the two, I think that the potential extra $200 to $300 in price for the S20, especially with it being on sale now, would make it worthwhile. But overall, if you have this phone or are looking to upgrade from a lower level phone or from a different phone, I think that it is still a solid deal if you can get it at a competitive price. Now, again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment box below. But otherwise, feel free to check into the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.